What is going on, guys? Welcome on into today's stream. We are looking right now at a small cap, UONE. We'll cover that in a second, but I'm going to pull up the S&P 500. It's up about 0.5%, approaching the highs of mid-April. The NASDAQ is essentially making a new high of the year, like right this second as we're on the stream. So yeah, we got a bounce back, or whatever you want to call it, from I guess Tuesday, Wednesday of this week, when things looked like we were setting up for a nice little pullback. Well, that's obviously not really happening anymore. What I was looking at before was UONE, and I had it as a swing, and I was essentially looking for the breakout here a few weeks or months back. I guess a few weeks back where this is back in March. And I got in, and it did nice. I took some profits up at 8, and then it came back down, and I ended up getting stopped out as it fell below 650. But I had this slight little semi-speculation that this could be just a shakeout before maybe this is about to go on a run, as it tends to do this time of year before Juneteenth. And what are we getting? We're right back up here. So it kind of has that same vibe. I ended up actually getting in at like 690 something today. I re-entered on the Robinhood portfolio just because what I saw. So that's the deal. We are back in business on that one for now. And the stop loss becomes the 610 low. So it's not a lot of money that I'm throwing on the lines, but I'm looking for the next target of 8, and then we'll see if we get more. Just has that fake out nature. Seems like that's what's going to happen, and that's small caps for you. It's mind games. It's, the technicals, well, they work at times. They also don't work at times, and they don't make sense at times. That's just small caps for you. But everyone's doing well. Look at the 5-minute chart here on SPY, and she's bouncing back a little bit. What's going on, Flippa? 56%. No, nice. I had a futures trade this morning, and then I had an IWM trade, which was a loser. So one in the futures account, lost in the options account today. Essentially, here's my look on IWM. I mean, it was this. Here it is. Here's the hourly chart. Double top on the hourly, pretty much around this, 175.60. Broke that, and you got this like tiny little push, but it pushed 20 cents. I'm like, it's got to go at least 40, 50 cents for me to take a piece of gains, and it didn't. And then I ended up coming back down and got stopped out. So it's kind of a dud there. Usually the higher time frames, like the 1-hour charts, tend to provide better trend breaks. Just didn't. But I had a futures trade. I'll go to futures. Again, I'm still playing these pretty small, but just kind of getting the rhythm. But here it is. Here's the 5-minute chart on ES. Essentially, it's the same thing. It's a SPY. But yeah, I had this, essentially all these highs right up around this 41.57.50 area right here. That's where the line is, and I still have it on there. And then this thing exploded. And I was looking for like 8 to 12 points, and we got more than that. So this thing went like 15 plus, maybe actually 15 points or so. Well, actually, no, 20 points. 20 points from the break to the highs, pretty much. 19 points. That's a big move. It's a big move. So, you do the math, micro futures, 5 contracts, do the math. Do 1 contract, that's like almost $100 on 1 contract. One. So do the math. That's why I like the micro so much, because you can size that to whatever you want, and it's great for practicing, great for starting out in small account and just practicing futures. Because you play 1 or 2 contracts, what's your worst, unless you're holding massive bags, which you shouldn't be doing anyway. Your downside is not that bad. What's the worst case scenario? You lose $50. If you lose $50, that's about, what is that? That's about a 10-point move. So should you be in a trade, unless you're a swing trader or you're looking at like 30-minute, 15-minute to 15-minute plus charts. On a 5-minute chart, if you're taking trades off a 5-minute chart and you're down 10 points, that's a pretty hefty move against you. Like, you shouldn't, I don't know, it depends upon your way of playing it. At least for me, on a 5-minute chart, there's no way in hell I'm holding, something longer than down 10 points against me. And it's like, well, I'm wrong. Something's off. The timing's off, something's off. So what's going on, Kevin? It's funny, Lakeland, Florida. Let me just double check because I think I'm going to be heading down in that general area, if I'm not mistaken. Let's see. No, I'm not. Not going to be Lakeland, but I'll be coming through in like a couple weeks. We are picking up a puppy in just north of Miami, which is kind of crazy, in Davie, Florida. And my girlfriend got approved for a puppy that she's been wanting for a long time. So we're making the trip in like about a month. And then we're going to have to drive back to Texas with the dog, which is going to be interesting. We're going to kind of make a little trip out of it, like stop in Panama City, Destin area on the way in for like one night, then get down to like the Miami area, Fort Lauderdale area, stop there on Sunday, hang out like Sunday night, and then we'll have like half the day Monday, then pick up is like Monday afternoon. So we're taking off time from working and stuff and making that Monday, Tuesday trip. So that's going to be fun. But I was like, Lakeland sounds familiar because I remember we were looking at like, maps and stuff. Lake City, I think we have a hotel, or we're planning to get a hotel in Lake City, I think. I don't know. It just made sense based on the route. That's why I was like, Lakeland sounds familiar. But that's the plan. Oh yeah, also in the meantime, I got a AMD position currently that I'm in right now. Here it is. So here, this is on Webull. I'm covering the option position that I'm in, but the option chart, but this is the chart of the actual stock. So on the left, so we had this consolidation. You can go to like a 30-minute chart, go to the 1 hour chart, right? What do you see? It's just like kind of like a 3-bar setup, or, if you want to call it that, one big move, kind of a small consolidation, candle, and then a bigger move up. Use what you want to see. But if you go to like a 15-minute chart, right, we got pressure upon a resistance, 30-minute chart, pressure upon a resistance, and now we're testing. Could it go wrong? Yeah, it doesn't have to break, but I played calls once we broke this 89.30 area, and there's no reason to sell yet until this pattern breaks down. So that's what I am currently in. It's up like 1.5% as I speak. But that's the only trade that I'm in. Well, that's like the trade that I'm in right now on the options account. But that's that. So we'll see how that pans out. If it works, great. If not, then, obviously SPY helping, or the S&P kind of helping to the upside would be a good thing, which is kind of giving us that move right now. So we'll see if we get a little power hour squeeze into the close, but we'll see. Yeah, I mean, the S&P or the futures trade was good, but the IWM essentially like negated the gains there. If you're going to talk about like a net, like on the day, what's the net? It's like flat. Because the IWM, actually maybe even slightly red, because I think I was sized in bigger on the IWMs compared to the sizing here. So I think it's slightly red, but 1 for 1, and maybe we'll go 2 for 1 if AMD kind of gives us a little bit of a push to highs here. We'll see. She's struggling. She's struggling for sure, but maybe. Yeah, it's gonna be fun. The drive down to Florida. It's gonna be fun. I mean, it's a ton of driving, and people are like, "Oh, you're gonna drive that?" It's like, well, flying with the little puppy, I don't know if that's the best idea, and I don't really want to deal with that, to be honest, like at all. So I'd much prefer driving. And also, I just drove with my dad and brothers from Montana to all the way to Nashville. So it was like a 30 plus hour. It was more than 30 because we had bad weather. Horrible weather, actually. But, so, I mean, I don't care. Driving the Gulf Coast is not going to be a terrible thing. I'm not like too worried about it. In terms of economic data from this morning, I believe we had some stuff, right? Didn't we have some stuff? Let's see. That's next week. Let's go into this. Today's the 28th. So personal income, personal spending came in line or just higher than expectations, looks like. Employment costs came just higher than expectations. PCE, I believe, came in like pretty much in line with expectations. If not, like, again, slightly hotter, but not like that much. Sentiment came in with expectations. And so it just kind of like a dud. I thought we'd get maybe better or more action off of the PCE today, but kind of a dud. So market didn't seem to care too much about it. We had the big move yesterday. Amazon was kind of a funny move. We were on the stream for Amazon, and massive. We kind of got off, and it was all the way up here, and then it ended up going red. So talk about the hopes and dreams of options traders getting crushed, because Amazon, I forget how much it was pricing in. I think it was pricing like a $5 move or something like that. I mean, and you kind of got it. You got about a $5 move, but that's if you bet directionally. Like if you bet on puts, you would be like break even to slightly green maybe if you bet puts. If you bet a straddle or strangle, you lost. If you bet calls, you obviously lost. You felt really good for a minute on the initial reaction, then it kind of fell apart. But that's the nature of earnings for you. And yeah, this market's like, yeah, screw it. I'm going to trade a little bit of VIX index options. See what lets you do it. Maybe one day that would be something I test out. Maybe. Wouldn't be opposed. Weather's turning. Actually, I think we're supposed to get some storms here today. We'll see. Weather's turned around better today. It was actually really, really nice yesterday. Yeah, it says we're supposed to get some severe storms like later on. We'll see how that ends up happening. We had some nasty ones, I think a couple nights ago. We woke up at like 3 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m., something like that. And it was like, it was insane. Insane rain, wind, thunder, lightning. It was nuts. So there's SPY breaking. Well, not breaking, but just push through. It's kind of been like after the morning volatility, once we hit like noon, really, once we hit noon Eastern time, noon Eastern, it was dead. Ever since noon, it's been dead. And we're kind of getting some better movement now in the last like half hour, but like not surprised though. That's kind of what happens. Traders are calling it a weekend, calling it a week. XSP, the mini S&PX. Drop after the rise in Amazon. Heard was something about the problems in the cloud. Yeah, I thought there was something going on with AWS and concerns there and whatnot. I don't know. It doesn't seem like in the grand scheme of things, though. Like when you look back, we'll see how if that continues to pressure the downside of it. In the grand scheme, like, okay, not really much has really happened here. I mean, it's not like this thing is down here, or it's up here. It looked like for a minute that it was going to be up here because it was trading up there briefly, but that quickly sold off, and now it's kind of like right in line with where it's been. So not much. Not much on Amazon. I think it's kind of like I won't say a nothing burger, but it's kind of a dud. So we'll see. It's AMD, man. If we get a little pop to those new highs, this breaks and we get like a 25-cent push, that would be sick. But we'll see. Been a lot of those end of the day where it broke like a little while ago, which is why I played it. But I've been a lot of those end of the days on like stuff like that, and then like it just kind of chops, and then it's a break even at best situation. Yeah, possible bull flag. It looks good. I mean, that's why I played it, simply breaking this level of respect. Now you've established this 89.49 area as your next spot. So we can kind of establish that line right there. Needs to break that and hopefully provides a pop. If it doesn't provide a pop, it's a dud. But we will see. I will put a sell. I'll put like a sell maybe at like on these. I'll put a sell for one of these contracts in case it pops and I'm not paying attention. But I'm not sure if I'll even get filled. I'll put a 320 sell. It's going for 3 by 305 right now on those. And I buy next week. Ever since Wednesday, I started playing next Friday. If I'm going to play options, I'm playing next Friday. That's just the way. I don't know. That's the way it feels. I feel better about that. QQQ though, guys, look at this. I mean, we are breaking this level. So it's a big move. Don't get me wrong on the Qs from where it was like 2 days ago, 3 days ago, 309 to 320. But it's breaking this level, man. And it just looks pretty good. If you go to check the weekly chart here. I mean, these candles, the one that we got this week, makes me pretty, like, this is a pretty bullish setup. Because you've obviously got respect of a key level for many weeks, because these are weekly candles, right? So 1, 2, 3-ish. Now today's the 4th week. We're like right up there. But this week you traded down here, had this big lower wick. So it says, rejection. It was essentially saying, hey, we got rejected. Sellers are too strong here. Sorry. and then it dips down, immediately bounces right back, and buyers come in, and we're back to highs. I mean, that's just telling you that the selling pressure was not strong enough, and we're headed up. Now, again, news could happen, doesn't have to break out, but it's breaking out. So from a technical perspective, man, this does look pretty good. And the next target that I'd have in mind is up here towards 334. So up into the 330s. So it's another $10 move from here would be kind of the move I'm thinking on QQQ, which is essentially the size of this week's range, a little bit less than this week's range. So it would be a big move. It doesn't have to happen in a week, but this will be the next level that I'd be watching. So we'll see. We will see. Yeah, the AMD one that I have right now is next Friday expiration. And I'll sell it before the end of the day. So it will not be something that I will hold over the weekend. Just hit 89.50 to essentially hit that same level. Putting pressure on it, which is good. You want to see that, but it needs to break through for the trade to be a working green trade. It just seems like we're getting like choppy, shitty price action. So honestly, those scenarios I could think about and say to myself, you know what, maybe it's worth not even doing that, not even trying it, because I mean, the writing was kind of on the wall. You had this wick right here that broke this, level of respect by like 10 cents and then came right back down. And so when you see things like that, it kind of rubs me the wrong way and tells me maybe this is going to, chop precedes chop. So maybe, just avoid it. But it looked really nice on the higher time frame. So I decided to take it and thought maybe, into the end of the day and get some better directional movement. Maybe this kind of squeezes out and pops you up a little more. But the setup was there, so I decided to take it. We'll see if it pans out. It's green by a little bit right now, but not by much. Top thoughts. Those are the two big squeezers, right, for the past week. This is insane. This stock was nuts. Go to the 30-minute chart. I mean, I'm not a fan. You got a double top up here. I'm not a fan of these things at all. I never like buying these things when they're this high. So I just I don't care for them. They're just squeezing the hell out of shorts. So when you got games like this, the short play or the downside will be massive. And when the time comes, it's going to be great. But they can prolong for more than you think. The only good side, or the reason I would say that this is maybe even a decent time to short, is because of the fact that you had this move that couldn't break a new high this morning. But I don't know, man. I personally, I stay away. I'm not long in that stuff. Same thing with HUDI. It's in the process of just squeezing out shorts right now. So it's going hard. And if you look at this is a prior runner as well, regaining a lot of ground. But this is at a pretty, in terms of volume, the volume profile, it's at a pretty good spot. If it gets above $10, I mean, from a volume profile perspective, there is not a lot of volume. This thing is traded up above that level. So maybe that's a spot to watch. $10 is also a nice psychological area, so keep that one in mind. But it's up 250% today. That's absolutely insane. Just kind of getting flagged. But see how these flags are not very clean? The reason why I like I like flags up and down, right? That's what I've always liked, really ever since I first started diving into technical analysis. I was like, what's one of my favorite patterns? And I always would have to be flags. Just essentially all it is just consolidations before the next leg of a move. And you get that in small caps, but it's not as clean. The setups are usually not as clean. There's a lot more mental games being played, and I'm not really a big fan of that. I'm just not a huge fan of the mental games that get played, and these fake outs, these massive bull traps, bear traps, and the charts don't look as clean. So when you're in these, that's why whenever I play small caps, I mean, it's always going to be buying a dip. It's always me buying the thing when it's relatively low, or after I think I have a feel. And again, when you say that, you're thinking what's going to happen next. But when you have a feel of what's going on, it's above 10 now on HUDI, by the way. So that's a big level to break. But see how fast that move just popped, I don't know, however many percent that was. You just broke over high of the day. Yeah, so could provide a nice break to the upside here. But yeah, bull for SPY 2. I mean, QQQ looks bullish. SPY's daily chart. Well, SPY, by the way, right now is attempting. Let me get rid of that line down here because that was kind of earlier today. It's attempting to go for that high of the day, that blue line now. But if you go to SPY's daily, Oh man, AMD's ripping face. Here, let's check this out. That's a nice pop. Let's see if I can get like a little more. Like I'm looking for 89.75. That would be sick. That's still a lot more to go, honestly. I may want to just take this fairly soon because we only do have 40 minutes left. I mean, you gotta. I have 3 contracts of it, so I can take 1 or 2 off. I'm like 5 cents above the ask right now, so a further little push and I could get taken out. But I like to be proactive in taking these. And then like my biggest problem has been sizing on this stuff. This week is going to be a green week on the options side of things, which is good. It's a green week I'm pretty sure it's a green week across the board at all the accounts, which is cool. It doesn't always happen where the long-term account does well. The options account do. Honestly, I found that I tend to do better on the downside on day trades and stuff like that, options and even futures. And then that would it nets me like negative because the bigger accounts, the longer term accounts are net long. So those tend to do worse. This week, actually, kind of for whatever reason, everything was up. But I guess the market was down, then it was up. So it finished strong. So I guess there you go. But I think I was actually up more earlier this week when my hedges were hitting hard. I think after AI and AMD and stuff. So I'm on the ask right now for this AMD position. That's a big candle right there. That's not a bad spot to take off. I'm going to take that on one of the contracts. Let's see if I can get filled. Now I'm on the ask. This should fill. Let's see. I'm just going to double check the Robinhood portfolio, see how it's up. This week it is up. It's about up 3.5%. That's what it's up this week. Yeah, it's got filled on the AMD. So I've sold a third of it. I'll put the next sell like 10 cents higher. And then we can talk about whatever and just like kind of let it do its thing. And then I'll have the last contract in case it really wants to rip and go to $90, which would be sick, but I don't know. No guarantees. So AMD is, I don't want to say saving the day, but it's making that's a nice trade. That was a really nice chart, really nice trade. And if it comes back against you, there's no reason, again, taking profits into that move, there's no reason to let it go red. So your stop would be at break even on the rest of the contracts. So there's really, it's really, when you get a move like that, you shouldn't lose. You really shouldn't lose, especially if you're playing for the break. But yeah, so it worked out pretty well. Only thing is I do have an IWM put that I'm using as a hedge. That's a big move. That's a little pullback there. We'll see what happens. I took one off. I've got 2 left. I'll watch it at the corner of my eye. If it breaks down below like, I don't know, 89. Oh, look at that fucker as I'm saying it right now. SPY had a little red candle. Ideally, I want to see it hold over 89.50. If that can't hold, give it a minute or two. 9 EMA is like right there, 89.45. Ideally, that would hold, but still up like 3-4% from my entry. I bought next week, so they don't move as aggressively. This is like the shit that's like, okay, great. I may just take this thing off here. Yeah, I'm taking this thing off. I'm not dealing with this bullshit if she's going to do that. But that's the nature of how things have kind of been. You get these like breaks. I just took it off. I ended up selling the other 2 for still green from my entry. So it ends up being not as big of a trade as it could have been. But that's why you be proactive into the extensions, especially when you have an environment where it's like chop. And here's the thing. It may go back to high of the day. It's just that, do you want to hold through that? Is it worth it? Is the probability as high now for this thing to continue? Okay, I had a massive push to highs, then it pulled, it hit the 75 target exactly that I was looking for, about a 25-cent pop from the breakout. Cool. Maybe I was looking for 50 cents, but it doesn't look like it's going to give it to us. So whatever. I bought the contracts at like 297. I sold one at 3, or I sold one of them at 320, and then the rest at 305. Whatever. But okay, so then we can talk back to SPY. So we can get out of this because I'm not in any trades on Webull, so I can get rid of Webull for now. Save some computer space, I guess. Yeah, SPY went off that. Yeah, look at that. Perfect. SPY technically hit a high of the day and then rejected. So if it gets above that, great. But now you're only dealing with like 30 minutes left in the day. So is that trade worth it? To be honest, no, I don't think so. How much profit we get on three contracts? It depends on the price of the contracts. The ones I took were like $3, so it was about a $900 trade. So I put $900 in. And I'm ideally looking for 10+% in a perfect world. Although I'm not going to be an idiot and sit there and have one that was green now, like decently green, that was 5 plus 6% green, now go red. So it was like up 6% at the high, which is not a lot of money, but I'm still just playing off of like, trying to keep the trades consistent, play the same setup, and then see where the account's at. And then as I get more confident in the system and just trading it, knowing how I trade it, then you can size it up to 5 contracts, 6 contracts, 10 contracts. Eventually, it doesn't really matter. When you're playing, stocks like AMD, you're playing stocks like Apple, SPY, Tesla, you can buy unlimited contracts essentially. There's no cap. If you're playing stuff that has thinner spreads, not as much volume, that's where you can run into trouble. And so that's the stage that we're at. The past, like really since March is when I began like kind of focusing in on the strategy. Do I trade that strategy every single trade? The goal is yes, but sometimes you make errors. You make mental errors. You do things. You have a little impulse, little demon, on the back of your shoulder that's telling you take this, and you're like, it's not really what's the setup, but it's like I think this is going to happen, so you do that. But I've minimized that a lot. I really haven't had a lot of that stuff happen. Anytime that does happen, most of the time, I'd say like 9 times out of 10, it's a loser. You lose anyway. So I've just gone back and said to myself, if I just take this setup and I execute it properly, where I take my profits when I say I'm going to take my profits, and I cut my losses when I say that I'm going to cut my losses because the pattern is no longer setting up or it breaks down against what it was, I find that it's pretty doable to manage risk in a manner that allows you to win more on a percentage scale than you lose. If you're like my stop loss is like roughly 10% on anything. Like I shouldn't be in something that's 10+%. If I'm in something that's 10+% down, I mean I'm wrong, or I just traded a contract that's a little too volatile, or if I did that, then I have to understand that the upside needs to be played accordingly too. But I think it's working pretty well. I see the potential that it has, that's for sure. So I'm excited for it, and it's great. And doesn't really matter if we're going up or down. It works the same way on both up and downside. So it's cool in that regard. When you get that chop in the middle of that kind of shit show, that's where you can kind of chop yourself up for a couple of days, or in the past couple of weeks has kind of been the case. This week I think different because we got better action. Even though this week though, I mean, still even today, like you had this, like this is kind of like, what the fuck is this? Stuff like that kind of pisses me off. But there were still opportunities before that provided good setups and stuff. By the way, back to that AMD. Let's see what she's doing. So it essentially came down. I'm not surprised it's going to kind of bounce there. But again, like, was it worth, after that failed break or failed push, was it worth me holding this thing back down with the risk of it coming down and breaking down the pattern and then having a red trade? Or is at this point in the day, with 40 minutes left, I had taken some gains, just lock the rest in at break even or just north of break even and move on. It's a green trade. It's a green trade. You can come back and learn from it. Looking back, was it the best setup? No. And also this chop precedes chop, as we say sometimes. So, take that into account. Ideally, AMD's better trade for that setup or that strategy that I've been playing off of would have been right here. Right in here. And I didn't take it. So this blue line, I can get off the page here. Let me delete these lines. Would have been, here's the high. What happened was we had a push up. Jeez, this thing is being weird. Push up right here, consolidate for a few minutes, and then you don't want to see it consolidate for an hour, ideally a couple minutes, consolidation, and then break, and that would have been good, and you would have had about 15, 20 minutes of continuous move to the upside. You had a little pullback here, but that pretty much came back to that line. And then your stop loss would have been right here. In my head, that's my stop loss would have been right here. So if that's the trade, you go to make a trade, out of it. 2-to-1 would have been right here. So yeah, you exceeded 2-to-1. Not that it needs to be 2-to-1 all the time, and it doesn't always work out that way, but in a perfect world, if I'm going to take gains, like ideally, and I'm sitting there saying, when do I take gains? If I ever ask myself that question, when do I take gains? It's whenever if I'm sitting there and we're up nicely, I'm like, and I didn't have a level in mind. Are we at 2-1 based on my risk? If we are, you absolutely take something off. So that would have worked nicely. That would have been better because at that point in time, you had a much better momentum situation. Right now, you don't really have that. You have more choppy momentum. Yeah, it's trending up, but it's a lot more choppy. And then also contracts can bleed out depending upon the expiration and stuff. So you end up kind of in a situation where it's like not ideal. Ideally you want, push up or down, consolidate shortly for, 15, 20, 30 minutes, and then the next leg occurs and you have momentum. So that is the AMD deal. There's SPY's chart. PACW went up several days ago on earnings, but down today because of FRC. Let's take a look. Now, I've been seeing, though, as a lot of, well, not a lot, but I've just been seeing further talk about the bank sector. This is an interesting chart because you have this is down towards 10. Let's see if we can draw a trend line or something in here. I mean, these bank charts look like, a lot of them to me, they look like they could either be setting up for huge bear flags that could be massive later on in the months, or just awesome dip buys. Because if they recover and they recover these gaps, I mean, this is going to be an easy money double if it recovers. And it could even be almost a triple if it gets back up to here. Now, it might take a long time to get there. And also, at $10 stock, you can be selling covered calls out the ass here. You can just be covered calls all day, every week, every month. Right? I don't know if they do weeklies or monthlies on options, but if you're comfortable with that. Now, the thing is, if you have an FRC situation, you have much more downside here because what did FRC do? It's the same. The FRC was the ultimate bear flag. I mean, look at that. Huge move down. You consolidate right here, and then boom, massive next leg down. So that's your downside risk. Again, you have to if you're going to take that with size or, with any sort of conviction behind it, you got to be careful because you now have this is now the playbook. This is what the charts are setting up. And now you got concern that other companies or banks could be looking similar to this down the road. What happens if we start seeing more shoes drop, in 6 months? So that's the only concern. If you feel confident in it, which again, we only know as much as we can look up and know. We don't know what's going on behind the scenes, what these companies, what they're actually doing behind the scenes and how screwed they actually are, if they are screwed. So you're willing to take the risk, but it's not a bad idea from a perspective of selling covered calls on that play. If it does recover, that's a double. I mean, you got a doubler if this thing does recover. So if we had a bigger bank crisis, right? Not to get too deep into this stuff, but if we had a bigger one later on down the road, a lot of these banks that you can look at that maybe if the Fed steps in further and whatnot, years or months to years down the road, if it gets worse, that could be one of the most lucrative sectors to be in on the recovery. The only problem is that in the meantime, we have this they could recover. It might take a while, might take a couple years at least, and maybe a couple months to quarters to maybe years for these things to recover back to, even the low end of where they were trading prior to the big collapse in March. Or you have a situation where we've got another leg down. Who knows how low that goes? Are you willing to hold through something like that? And then if it does survive, then the recovery cycle, which could be years down the road, could be very lucrative. And if you get towards the bottom, not going to catch the absolute bottom, but if you get in towards the bottom, a 2x, 3x, those are not impossible numbers to see over that recovery cycle. Let's say it's a year, 2, 3 years, right? I don't know how long. It could be 5 years. But that's still, if you triple your money in a span of 5 years on an investment, that's a pretty good investment if you ask me, So FRC got some fat premiums are now on puts. Could go bankrupt immediately. Well, yes, that is the risk. Yep, SPY loves to do that. Yeah, I mean, that's what AMD, man. Not that it pisses me off, but you have to just understand, too, that That's the environment. So you can fight it all you want, but if that's the environment, you got to be able to, adapt to that. So S&P also didn't really screw that hard. I mean, what it did was it essentially came to the exact spot. It broke it by like a quarter of a point, you know what I mean? Barely. And then it fell. It's not like it gave us like a nice like couple point move and then just did this. Like you could still say this is within reason, It's essentially hitting the highs and rejecting right off the highs, I think IWM was a better example of that today, where here's the level that I had drawn in. Because if you go back in time prior to, like, this is kind of a screw zone. This is where you're getting screwed. Prior to this, like, pretend this didn't happen yet. You just had a pretty clear level right here, and you had, essentially higher lows. You had a lot of pressure on that level. And so that tells me we can get a nice breakout. I think that's one of the better things, or the ways to adapt to setting for if you play breakouts like that, is like, if that initial break doesn't do it, then get out. Even if it comes back down and you have to take a loss right here, then just get out. Because in a perfect world, if you consolidate for this long on a 5-minute chart, this is like 2 hours of consolidation almost, or whatever, hour and a half. If you consolidate that long on a 5-minute chart and you essentially have like a 20, 30 cent range on IWM, right, which can move dollars in a day. It's up $1.28. If it, 20 cent range, you're expecting, ideally a double that. Like if the range is 25 cents, I'm expecting a 50 cent move, roughly speaking. Like I don't want to get a 25 cent move only for it to kind of screw me and then come back down. So that's kind of what you got. You went from like 175.65 to 175.82. You went 20 cents, not even. And then you came right back down. So yeah, did it technically hold up in this consolidation zone for like the next hour? Yes. My mistake when I played that one today was just not cutting it, somewhere in here. I ended up cutting it once it fell below here, which only just lost more time decay, and just the premiums at that point in time just fell off even further because it was a little further against me. So that's just like kind of a lesson when you see chop like that and it's like consolidation for a long time. That move should be pretty nice. If that move is not juicy, that's a red flag for that break. That's a red flag. So maybe dumb question, but isn't selling a put comparable to buying call? So if you're selling a put, essentially you are, the way you can look at it is if you're selling a put, let's say you're selling a SPY put at, let's just look at the prices here, like at like $400, and let's say it costs like, I don't know, $1. So if you sell a put there, let's say the puts are going for $1, you are selling someone that put. When you sell a covered call, you are essentially giving up your right for those shares at that strike price if it goes above. When you sell a put, if the contract were to expire below the strike price of that put, you then have to buy the actual stock, 100 shares or 100 shares times however many puts you sold of the stock at the strike price of your put. So let's say SPY, let's say you sell a put at 400 on SPY for like next month, and SPY comes down and goes to $3.99 and closes here in this box. You have to then buy 100 shares of SPY at $400. Now, you got paid. Essentially, I look at it as I'm getting paid to set a limit buy price for a stock or an ETF that I want anyway. That's how I would do it. If you are someone who is, the only problem with it is that it's expensive because you're going to need to have the funds in your portfolio or the margin requirements, right, to be able to then buy the shares. SPY, 100 shares of SPY, 100 times 400, do the math, right? You got to have a decent chunk of change. If it's a cheaper stock, you can do that maybe with a smaller portfolio size and whatnot. But if you are someone who is going to average in, like if you are averaging in, you have a large chunk of change and you are averaging into investments over time, and you're like, yeah, I'll buy Apple, or, I'd consider buying XBI, the biotech ETF. I consider buying XBI at like $70. Well, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to set those every month I'm going to go out and I'm going to sell a put for $70, just as an example, or I'm going to go out a couple months. And if it never hits, I'm getting paid to say essentially, hey, if it comes down to this level or lower, like I'll buy it at that price. I don't care if it goes lower. It's like setting a limit order. You know what I mean? But you're getting paid to do it. And if it doesn't get down there, then you don't buy the shares and you just kept the premium and the contract expires worthless and you're just chilling. So that's how it is. That's what like in simpler terms, like what selling a put actually is. That is the way to do it if you are looking to enter a position or dollar cost average or whatever. Although we say that, but dollar cost averaging into SPY means, for example, means you'd have to have 100 times the current price of SPY, which is $400, $420, whatever it is now, $415. That's a decent amount of money. People are, generally speaking, most of us are not dollar cost averaging into SPY with 40K, or whatever the number is. You know what I mean? Your dollar cost averaging a couple $100 a month, or, a couple $100 a week, maybe, whatever the number is. Could be even $50 a month, depending upon your income and portfolio size, which is still much better than not doing it at all, in my view, right? It's better than nothing. So don't just think because I only have $50, I shouldn't buy anything, right? If you're long-term focused, it's not necessarily the mindset to have. But yeah, that's what you want to do. So like that's kind of the idea of, now that I think about it, would be, this is what I would do. In the Robinhood, let's say like we have this scenario of like what if we get this, the screw zone, right? Or the ultimate max pain scenario where the market says, screw you, we're going to rip up to highs, whatever it wants to do, rip up here. And I'm like, screw it. I want to sell all my stuff, or I want to sell a lot of my positions and I want to hold a lot of cash. And I'm sitting there and you have this thought in the back of your head saying, yeah, it's a long-term portfolio. Your money should always be invested, To me, yeah, there'll be a chunk of it that might stay invested. But if we did something like this, I would say to myself, dare we even say all-time highs? Like, and that would be nuts. But if that happens, it's just ideas in my head. I would say, okay, sell the majority of what I have, hold a lot of cash, and now I'm going to go find an ETF that I like, that I would like to dollar cost average into over time, and I'm going to sell puts every week or every month that are substantially lower. That'll be like dip buys from where it's at right now. And if it gets there, great, I'll buy it. If it doesn't, it's a few extra bucks cash in the account that'll cash flow the account while I wait for better prices, right? Better prices. And who knows what's a better price? We'll have to see as time goes on. There's no way to know what the better price is going to be, right? If the market's going against that better price trajectory or at least level you're looking for. So that would be the way I would do it personally. And that's what I plan to do if that scenario occurs. If it doesn't occur, then it's not going to happen. But if it does, that's what I would do. And especially, if we do start to break down and the market's trending lower, what happens to put premiums? They start increasing. So you can go a little bit further down out of the money, right? From where the stock or whatever the market's trading right now and still get paid, something with an even lower chance for you to actually have to buy it at that price. And so that's just cash flow. That's just straight up cash flow that you'll ultimately be pulling out of, right? And then that every week, if you do it every week or every month, that's a check essentially. That money is now in your account. It's free to use and you can do it again, or you can buy something else if you want to buy something else. Or in the case of like a Robinhood portfolio or a lot of these accounts nowadays, it's going to earn, 4 or 5% interest. Killer. You know what I mean? There's extra cash earning a little more interest in the meantime while I wait for prices that I want. But that's my perspective. Keep it on the VIX. Yeah, the VIX is a good one to watch. It's down at $16, guys. Holy crap. The VIX is at 16. The VIX just went to new lows on the year. The VIX just hit a level that we have not seen today since November of 2021. Yeah. The dog in the back is not actually our dog. It's we're watching it for someone. We're dog sitting. But if you heard her jumping around, she is just like, I'm not sure if you can see her. I don't think you can. She is just, here she is. Look. She's just sitting in the beanbag chair, just like curled up like a little ball. which is kind of crazy. She's just chilling. She's super skinny. I feel bad, but that's just the breed is like, that's kind of how the breed is. But it's like, oh man, I just feel like you're cold or you just want her a treat. You know, I keep kind of giving her an extra treat or two because I feel bad. Speaking of XBI, has a good day today. Let's see. Yeah, it did. The only thing, yeah, it pulled back enough. I didn't really recover a lot of the pullback, which is interesting that it had. It's not right back up to the highs that it was at recently. There were some of these lines. This one's not really needed either. The VIX is back down to levels though. Again, we talk about like UVXY as like a hedge sometimes, right? Well, you know, you got to bounce on UVXY, right? But what happened? It bounced from 370s to 3 or 4. It bounced 13%. I mean, it's not much. Like if I'm going to use that as a hedge, I don't think I'm selling my hedge up 13%. Like I on UVXY, knowing the history that it has, you know, this move right here was 65. I mean, I think 50% is 50%. You know what I mean? On a UVXY hedge is where a 50% move on it warrants thoughts to sell. But if it's not going to do that, I don't really know if it's. I don't know. So you see what's happening now, and just whoop, it's just trapping people in. If you bought it here on that little spike this week. Well, now you're not severely, but now you're underwater pretty nicely, and it could continue if the market wants to rip higher, which SPY is right back up towards the highs. Not there yet, but it's close. Close. So yeah, we avoided the AMD. I mean, we got out of AMD, but the thing was, what would have happened? Could I have milked out a few extra bucks if I waited? Maybe, and it might still go to a high of the day. It might, but what's happened really? Choppy. So it's not a clean breakout. So in my book, that's fine. That's fine. Not like I missed out. Not really missing much on that. QQQ. That's breaking out to highs here on the daily chart. Look at that. You zoom that in. It's a new high of the year on the NAS. Two labs went foster. We fostered a lab. It was a lab mix with something else, but that was like the best decision we ever made. It was great. His name is George. You guys know, I'm sure like if you were watching streams like over the course of the past like year or two, whatever time has been, it's, you know, George. But yeah, George lives like 5 minutes down the road now because we moved closer to him, honestly. He lives like 5 minutes down the road, and we always watch him whenever his owners go away for like a weekend or for a trip or something. So I think he's come back at some point in like June or something like that, I think. So I'll be happy to have George. And he'll have a little friend too with our dog once we get I think my girlfriend's going to name her Honey is the name she's going with. It's going to be a golden retriever, female golden retriever named Honey, I believe. Not set yet, but that's, I think, what she's going for. So we've always kind of wanted to get a dog and call and a golden retriever and call him Buddy. That's always been like the thing, Buddy, you know, as a male. But because they didn't have any males available at this breeder, they all everyone wants a male golden retriever, I guess, before a female. So they had a bunch of females available, but no males. And so they're like, hey, you know, we gave all of our males away, but if you want a female, like, let us know. And then so she's like, yeah, you know what? Let's do it. So that was what happened earlier this week. So that's gonna be fun. It's a month away though. Still got a month until take home. But they were born about a month ago. Like the idea of using the VIX index. A couple months out that would be interesting. But the only thing is like, well, yeah, a couple months out, I think could be a juicy idea on that. I was saying too, you know, like a hedge perspective, you know, we go to new highs on the year on the S&P. We go to 4,300. That's a UVXY, gets pretty attractive to me as a hedge. I currently have, what do I have? I have a, let me go in here and check portfolio. I have an IWM hedge that's out to June 16th. And it's a 175 put for June 16th in the Robinhood. I said to myself a couple of days ago, like, I'm not sure if I want to get rid of this thing back when it was, because I got in, and like the day I got in, it just sold off hard. And I was up 30% on this hedge. It's out for like 2 months. I'm like, geez, man, if I had 2 of them, I'd take one off, but I only had 1 because portfolio doesn't need to have 2 to be hedged. It's not that long. It's not like it's leverage max long across everything. There's leverage in there, but it's in different ways. There's silver, which doesn't necessarily need to move with the S&P or the market. There's also TMF, TOT, which also does not need to move with the S&P. So those are 2 pretty big positions. So like you take that out, and then you got SOXL and like JEPI. I mean, to hedge those, all I need to do is be selling covered calls and really have, 1 put, if I want. And having more than that is a little more than a hedge, in my view, in terms of what the pricing was of the put out 2 months. So the only problem is like I could see this being the screw zone, and this thing kind of coming in and then just whoop, bouncing up. I will consider just getting out of it if we break above this 180, because that just invalidates the short side. But we'll give it time. It's got 2 months, and it's meant to keep peace of mind in case. It's not meant to like, oh, this has to hit, and I got to take profits at 30% or 50% or 100%, and then I have to get out because, no, I don't have to do anything. But I really do like, if there's a swing, if you want to look at a swing trade, man, what's a good swing trade right now? QQQ. Looks pretty interesting for a swing. On the weekly chart, that looks really good. This it's at resistance right now. It's like just barely above it or like right at it. It's still within, error of being at resistance, but I think this is the this is your edge. You get above here. If it did go above here, you're now playing with minimal edge because, yeah, you're playing breakouts, but now you've got less to go off of, and you're also kind of in no man's land, and this is a breakout right here. From here to here is your higher probability, but beyond that, you start getting into who knows what's going to happen right after that, if it got up there. So this big lower wick helps that thesis as well. If that lower wick didn't occur, you'd have just pressure upon that resistance, but that lower wick is kind of like sucks in some bears and then whoop, slingshots them right back up. And of course, we could easily just chop back down because we've been in this range from essentially 320-ish down to 312 for about a month. And it doesn't mean we have to break it, but yeah, that's the swing setup. If I had to pick a swing that I like the most, the upside, be QQQ. That's what it would be. Yeah. Stuff's ripping again here. Soxel just popped up. Let's check in on silver and gold. I haven't checked in there. I was looking at the 10-year. We was talking about their stuff, but the 10-year briefly here. It's down a little bit today, down 2.8, almost 3%, but still within this consolidation zone of DXY. This is interesting. So today you had a little push up on this, and I don't want to say it's concerning. It just is what it is, but it pushed up. This big upper wick sold off pretty hard. So again, this is the first level I'm saying, hey, it breaks above this. Okay, building some strength. Break above this. Okay, we're really talking about upside. It just didn't do it. And it got sold off pretty heavily today. So that's not looking bullish to me. I'm actually, I don't want to say extremely bearish on this because that's a little too much. But if anything, I'd be bearish until this thing proves to me by breaking like these 2 lines right here to the upside. Just no reason to start feeling juicy about it right now, if they ask me. Um, Apple earnings next week. Yeah, Apple is next week. I believe on Tuesday. Let's double check that. Pretty sure it's the 2nd, May 2nd, I believe. What is this chart? Apple is, no, it's Thursday. Shoot. I was wrong. It's on Thursday, the 4th, May 4th. My nephew has a golden retriever, French poodle mix, because of the difference in size, the two breeds, in order to carry the puppies. Large one has to be a mother. Okay. My parents have a golden doodle, and which is similar, I'd imagine, right? I don't know exactly what kind of poodle it was mixed with, and I forget if the mother was, I think the mother was the golden retriever. Yeah, the mother was the golden retriever both times. Yeah, so same thing. We had 2 golden retrievers essentially growing up. From I think like 6th grade, so we got our first one, Cody. He passed a little over a year ago, I think now. He's like 11 years old, I think. He was 11 years old, which I don't think is that bad. It's pretty good. It's a pretty decent life in terms of length. I think Bailey is our other one, who was a year or a year and a half younger than Cody. And she is still kicking it. So she's still, I mean, she's getting older, but she's still alive and well. I haven't seen her, by the way, honestly, in a while. So I hope to make a trip to Georgia at some point to visit the fam and see the pups. We also have my dad's aunt, who passed a few years back. Her Chihuahua, it's not a Chihuahua, it's a Chihuahua mix with something else or with multiple things. Who knows what it is? He's still with my parents. No, we don't know how old. I think he was a rescue. We don't have no idea how old he is, but he's still there too. So I haven't seen them in a while. 11 years is normal lifespan. Yeah, it was terrible to see how, it ended, but it didn't seem to end terribly. Like, he got kind of sick, and then within, 2 weeks, they had to put him down, and it wasn't like he had a prolonged, elderly period where he was, hurting for a while, at least from what we can tell. He was seemingly doing fine until all of a sudden, things stopped working very well. And, I think that they were saying that it was some sort of cancer, but to, unpack that can of worms at 11 years old, and go through the surgeries and testing, was it worth it? Do you want to even know what's going to happen? And so at that point in time, it didn't look good. Things were going downhill pretty fast, and it wasn't looking great. So they were kind of like, the best play here, for the dog's, safety and also, without putting it through more misery, right, might just be, to put him down at this point. And that's kind of what happened. So we don't know exactly what it was, but they assume it was some sort of cancer or something along those lines that accelerated towards the end of his life. But boxer before I had cancer. Boxers, tend to honestly don't live that long. My aunt and uncle had one that I think lived to like 4.5 when he had cancer. And that was like, to me, that was like, oh man, that's like almost a puppy. It's like a young dog still, 4.5. Geez. But yeah, that was a while back, but that was terrible. Just like that, Spy popped a new high. You got 3 minutes until close. So you trust that? Not that you trust it, but like, how much do you want to milk out of this? How much could you milk out of this? Apple, by the way, ripped. We're just talking Apple earnings. Look at that Apple move. Boom. Not to highs, but pretty close to high today there on Apple. Microsoft, that's why Spy popped a new high. Microsoft and Apple, the 2 biggest weights in the S&P 500, just had a rip into the close. That's why the S&P is ripping here. AMD? No, she's not, right? Look at this. So good that we got out of that, because she is not ripping. So going into next week, we've got the Fed. Let's just double check what we got next week. We got manufacturing data on Monday, job openings, factory orders Tuesday. We've got Powell on Wednesday. We've got Apple earnings on Thursday. You got jobless claims on Thursday morning, Apple earnings in the afternoon on Thursday. And then you got unemployment reports on Friday. Not insane, but you know, it's a week for that. Spy to, yeah, I it's just that's where futures will come in, to be honest, you know. That's where futures come in handy. But yeah, it's just like 2 minutes to go, it breaks out to new highs. It's kind of a little squeeze out, maybe this accelerates a little bit, but always sucks to lose a four-legged friend. Yeah, it does. It does. And I've kind of always, I have that like weird, that's why, like, to be honest, this dog that we're getting in like about a month, nothing against the dog, but I was like thinking to myself, like, to be honest, for me right now, like, I not that I'm not ready, like I love having dogs around and stuff and everything, but, and I guess I could fit it, and obviously you can make time, right? But it's like, I just don't know if I really want the responsibility and want to commit like fully to that myself. That's why technically the dog is my girlfriend's dog. Obviously I'll be very much involved in that process and everything, but I was kind of like, just for myself, like when it comes to, you know, traveling and trips and stuff, like it adds a whole another dimension, especially if you live, you know, somewhere where you don't have family or close friends that you can give the dog to, you know, board the dog or whatever, or, you know, it costs money, right? Now, obviously, if you have friends who can take care of it and stuff, it's also a burden on them, you know, and so it's a lot of extra stuff that you got to think about. At least the way I think about it, I'm not, you know, just thinking, let's just get a dog, you know, because I want a dog. No, like there's a lot that goes into it. And if I can't be 100% all in on that, you know, I'm not really going to commit personally to something like that because it's a big deal. Or at least you know, that's what I want to be able to provide for the animal, because that, you know, you're their life, right? You are in control of their life essentially. So, but she's planning on taking the dog in. Like, I'm sure the dog will be around like a bunch of time, like a bunch of days in general. But where she works, she can, look at that squeeze out on Spy, by the way, right there at the end of the day. But she works, they allow dogs. So she'll take, I mean, everyone takes their dog into her office. Like, not everyone, but a lot of people do. So she'll take the dog in, you know, 3, sometimes more times per week. So she's excited for that. To always have a little friend hanging around. So, yeah, so we ripped up here. QQQ. Woo, look at that rip into the close. Pretty impressive finish to the day, man. Pretty impressive finish to the day. Huh. Yeah, stocks. Oh yeah, the Robinhood portfolio did pretty well this week. Let's see, is it up? It's up about almost 4% this week on that portfolio, which is pretty good. It's a green week in the day trade portfolio. It's a green week in the futures portfolio. It's a green week across the board everywhere for me. But could have optimized it, could have done better, I would say. That's for sure. I mean, I could have done a much better job. Although the first week, you know, getting out of a chop into some better price action, then there's some testing of the waters. I'm not just like slapping huge size. There was one missed opportunity. There was a Tesla trade, the biggest missed opportunity this week, which, to be honest, would have made the week, because even on small size, you could have done exceptionally well on this trade as I was watching it play out. But it was this. I believe I missed this. It was right here. Actually, I think I took a piece of that. I forget exactly what it was. Was it this one? Or was it a different one? No, it was this. No, yeah. I was there for this, but I did not play it with large size. And I also took profits like pretty quickly onto this move of this breakdown right here. And that was a big move. But the biggest one was this one right here. Yeah, this is on Monday. Yep. I mean, it would have made the week in one trade. It was just based off of what the contracts I was watching and that I did not take at the time because of how fast it happened. When you get a move that fast, contracts explode. So you had a breakdown of this, essentially the low of the day at this 162.74 area, 75. And then you came down with, you bounced, then you came down, made lower highs, and had a bunch of 5-minute wicks right here. So now you're about a half hour to a little over a half hour into the day. You've got some price action, you're establishing direction, you're establishing pressure on a level, and Tesla also under 165. That was kind of like the line in the sand for me on a big picture time frame to either be bullish or bearish. I'm bullish above 165, bearish below. And so I'm like, big picture, I like the short side because we're under 165. We're pressuring a level. And within 15 minutes, the thing drops like $3-4. Now, within 30 minutes, it dropped like $4 or $5. But within 15 minutes, the thing was down here at 160. So, I mean, this move by itself was monstrous on the contracts I was watching. Monstrous. And so even if you played it with small size, you could have done really, really well. So that was the biggest miss. But looking back, the reason why I was skeptical and didn't take that was because it was Monday morning. We had just had a week of chop that these patterns were just what they were doing was we'd get a pattern like that. It would do this and then whoop, screw you, and bounce to new highs. Like that's what the past, 2 weeks was telling us. And so I was skeptical of taking it. And then, seeing other stuff make some better movement or have better price action with, respect to things like that setup gave me better confidence as the week went on. But that was the biggest missed opportunity, I would say, for me that I was watching. But even that is not, it's not the end of the world. Now you have lived and learned. We're in a bit of a hotter, I think, environment for, the market, less chop, a little hotter. If we check out the choppiness index, we can pull up that indicator. Choppiness index. Load me up. Did I not pull it up? I gotta go to SPY. Let me go to SPY. Let me go to the daily chart on SPY and pull up. Yeah, there she is. So what we're looking at right now on this in the bottom of our screen is called the choppiness index. And what it tells you is that when it's like the RSI, when it gets up here, we're choppy. When it gets down here, we're trendy. Now the thing is, do you want to be you honestly don't want to play the choppy, use the choppiness indicator in a sense, or index as it's choppy, don't trade. No. You kind of want to see and start to kind of identify when it starts to roll over, because that's the time. You want to be trading, if you're trading the trend, you want to be trading the trend as we move from choppy towards trending. Okay? Because that's when we're trending the most. When we had this low, we start trending, or we start going back up from trending to choppy, that's when the market's cooling off and it's a lot more choppy. And even though the indicator index is still way down here, your movement, kind of like the MACD almost, is going from a period that was trendy. Now you're headed back towards choppy. And that's kind of like the market going and moving in pieces and moving in cycles, right? You don't just always stay trending all the time. You don't always stay consolidating and choppy all the time. So you have these oscillations. So right now, it looks to be a time that we are potentially rolling over from being choppy to maybe starting to trend back towards trending a bit. And it looks like, based off of this, you can go to a 4-hour chart, you zoom out to get a better view of this indicator. Let's see. Yeah, on the 4-hour chart, you went from extreme chop to now you're back down towards trending. So you got this. What this told me is that, you actually had a period of time this week of really good action, and we might be getting closer to a period of maybe this is getting more choppy, a consolidation on the 4-hour time frame. So you always be picking and choosing different time frames to get a feel for things, but that's kind of one of those things that I'll look at from time to time and just try to get a feel for. If the market's choppy or trending, you can generally tell yourself. But the longer it stays in one of those, in one of those kind of categories, the less and less confident that I would be in that. But by the way, in a matter of 3 days, the S&P goes from breaking down below this level right here, about to push down, which looks like for new lows, and then pushing up and made a new high of the year. The S&P finished with a new high of the year, new high of the month. New high of the year is up here. QQQ finished with a new high of the year. That's a breakout right there, if you ask me. That's a breakout over the level. I'm looking for 330 plus on QQQ now. From a technical perspective, am I positioning all in trade? No, I'm not doing that. But from a technical perspective, this is what I would expect to see happen next. We got some room up in here. We got some room to fill in on this chart. So we'll see. We'll see. Profitable week, tested patience this week. That's okay. That's kind of the way I kind of feel too, right? Tested the patience because it's easy to have that miss opportunity on, that Tesla for me and whatever it could be for you, and it doesn't matter, anything, whatever it is. easy to see that and go, ah, shit, get pissed at yourself and then force something that's not really there. But if you didn't and you stayed somewhat disciplined, that's a win. Sometimes I can find some good trades. Yeah, I'm not the biggest indicator guy out there. Let me tell you, I much more prefer my trend lines and levels, but mostly levels. But I'll use them. I will definitely use them. And sometimes when they're respected and when they're useful, even better. So with that said, I appreciate you guys for hanging out on the stream and tuning on in. We will be back on Sunday night. We'll do a live at around 9 p.m. Eastern time is like the plan. Give or take, an hour, I would say. But around that time frame will be the plan. And then next week we'll be back on the usual, I think Monday, Wednesday, Friday, probably. This week's Saturday video, tomorrow's video, will be much shorter than, I had to break it up into 2 last week. Should be much shorter. Should be 15 minutes or less. So that's the plan. Thanks so much. Have a great weekend. And I will see you guys next week.